of his day one priorities, among them closing the border, starting the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history, to begin reviewing the cases of January 6th prisoners, to greenlight new fracking leases, to end the war in Ukraine, and much, much more. Here to weigh in, Maura Gillespie. She's the founder and principal of BlueStack Strategies and previously served as an advisor to former Speaker of the House, John Boehner. Maura, thanks for being with us. It's a big list. How much of it can he actually get done on day one?
Well, I mean, there are a handful of things he can do on day one. I think with energy and positioning America as the global leader on clean energy innovation is important. Not only with the drill baby drill slogan he came up with, but I think there are ways to address the overregulation that has been happening with our whether it's for permits for drilling or for different avenues of using clean energy sources like our nuclear energy out in the Midwest and places like that. I think that's something that he can do. Executive action on day one, roll back some of those, over-regulations and address that issue. I think also talking about housing issues, there needs to be a coordination with Congress. And I think that's why it's so important that as you hit the ground running in your first 100 days, you want to have a strong partnership with your members of Congress, with your Senate. And so I think that for members of the Hill, it's important that they recognize how critical this moment is, and getting behind Speaker Johnson and not having infighting so publicly is really going to be important.
Well, speaking of the House, I mean, it could not be any tighter right now. I believe the number is 219 Republicans to 218 Democrats. The leader of those barely minority Democrats is Hakeem Jeffries, and he doesn't see great things in the years ahead under President Trump. Listen.
It was important for the American people to see the beginnings of what is going to take place over the next 2 to 4 years, which is chaos, dysfunction, and extremism, and a Republican Party that is not really interested in helping out working class Americans, but is really determined to enact massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and well-connected corporations.
How would you respond to that? It seemed like the Republican Party did pretty well among working class Americans in the last election.
That was my first thought when I heard that line. But I think that what Republicans can do, one, is probably remind Hakeem Jeffries that's how they won, by addressing the issues that concerned Americans in day-to-day life. Grocery costs, housing costs, crime at the border. And so by addressing those main three issues, I think that's really going to be an important role for not only for President Trump coming in, but for the Republican-led Congress. And I do think that's why it's so important that they find ways to get that job done. Again, I don't think that having the fighting that's going on right now, or even the speculation over Speaker Johnson, is helpful, because it just adds to that narrative that Hakeem Jeffries just mentioned. This chaos, can't get things done. Well, let's all get in line and support Mike Johnson so that there can be an agenda that roll out that is consistent and unified and productive.
4 years ago, we saw Joe Biden change an awful lot of things on his first day in office. Among other things, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He also canceled a lot of the border protection installations that Donald Trump had put into effect during his first term in office. So the president's first day can be huge, and it can really set the tone for the next 4 years, right?
It certainly can. And I do think that, the border issue, as Democrats have seen, that they went too far, and they know that. And then they have failed consistently to message, OK, how do we address the issues of the border? And they chose in large ways not to. Right. We watched that play out. And in a big way on November, people, Election Day were unhappy with how the administration has handled the issues of the border and with crime rising as it has. And so I do think that you're going to see this big impact with Tom Homan coming in to, clean things up in a way that needs to be done. We can't be the land of hope and opportunity if we don't have law and order. And that is something that Republicans at large have been saying repetitively to voters, but also to the administration and to their fellow members of Congress, and reiterating how important it is to recognize the threat that we face there. We obviously are a nation built on immigration, and that's still going to be important. And it's important to remember that we want people here who are coming here to seek a better life, but to do so legally. And so that's going to be an important part as they navigate these next 100 days, but also, these next 4 years. I think that the president and with a strong Congress can do a lot, but they need to be disciplined and focusing on the agenda that got them elected, which is the economy and border and safety.
Well, very quickly, he also said he'll end the war in Ukraine on day one. Seems like the only person on the planet who could actually do that would be Vladimir Putin.
And I don't know that with Vladimir Putin already looking now to see how he can impact Finland and other places. We're hearing reports of he's expanding his view of what he wants to conquer. I don't think that that's as feasible as the incoming president had made it seem. I think that's going to be very tricky. And again, without jeopardizing the alliance that we have with Ukraine and supporting people who, again, were just attacked by Vladimir Putin in a power land grab assault. So we've got to be careful in that regards. And our foreign policy matters. Very important. It's very important to our relationships, not only with just that region, but around the world. If we back down on our word, that's going to carry a lot of weight and jeopardize our relationships worldwide.
Maura Gillespie, it's going to be an interesting 4 years. Thanks for getting us started.
Certainly is.
All right.